So let's talk about the unicorn in the room. See what I did there? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today I am sharing yet again about Lularoe by popular demand. And to be honest, I was not going to make a second video. I was not even going to make the first video, but it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, and I felt like it was something that I needed to do. I felt like I needed to kind of get that out there, and I felt sort of responsible for sharing my story in a weird way. Yeah, but after I filmed the first video, a lot of stuff started coming back to me. There were things that I had completely forgot about. And so that is what I'm sharing today. I'm going to share a few things that I didn't share in the first video. So if you have not watched the first video yet, please make sure you do that first, where I detail my entire experience with Lularoe, where I was before, what happened during, and why I quit. It's pretty long, but I do cover a lot of stuff in there. In this one, I wanted to go over the things that I forgot about, answer a couple questions, and go a little more in depth about certain things that I feel are important to share. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, why did I wait so long to share my story? A lot of you had this question, and it's a very valid question because I was a consultant a long time ago. It's not like I did this last year and I'm just, you know, kind of coming off of it fresh. This was in 2015 when I started, May, and then by the end of that year, literally by New Year's Eve, because I wanted to be done at the end of the year, I was done. So that was 6 years ago. That's crazy. Yeah, so it is a really long time, and there's a lot of reasons why I didn't share. One of them is that it wasn't the right time. During that time, that is when Lularoe was experiencing crazy growth. When I started, it was around 1,000 consultants, and then by the end of the year, it was more than that. I can't remember the exact number, maybe like 10,000. And then after that, it just grew exponentially. But I started to see problems beforehand. There was a lot of red flags, and I went over those in my first video. It didn't feel right. There were a lot of things that were just really didn't make a lot of sense, and I just wanted no part of it. However, when I left, a lot of people were joining. A lot of people were wearing Lularoe and loved it. I feel like that's also when the Facebook Lives started to really take off. So Lularoe was just everywhere. It was just, you know, everyone was selling it, everyone was wearing it, and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't the right time because, A, who's gonna believe me? Everyone is obsessed with Lularoe, and you know, it's literally like the best thing that ever happened to them. So if I had a bad experience and I wanted to share it, who's gonna believe me? And, you know, after I quit, a lot of the girls shunned me. They stopped talking to me, they unfriended me, they unfollowed me. So it's just like, I felt really alone. I felt like no one would believe me. It's one thing when they're having problems and people are leaving and this and that, because people are more likely to believe you. But when the opposite is happening, it's just like, oh, you're just being negative. Oh, you know, it just didn't work for you. You weren't taking your business seriously, things like that. And then another reason is I didn't want to get in trouble. I'm a pretty cautious person, and me even sharing this is like totally out of my comfort zone. And this was before any of the lawsuits or anything like that, and I did not get a good feeling about some of the people, and I did not want anything to come back later on and cause any problems for me. So that was a really big reason. And then another reason is that I was not in the mindset to share something like this. I've changed quite a bit since then. I was a people pleaser. I never wanted to hurt anyone's feelings. I never wanted to do anything wrong. I cared a lot about what other people thought about me. And I have always been such a positive person, and I didn't want anyone to see me in a negative light. I was terrified of that. I just didn't want that to happen. And I was also in a completely different mental state. When I was younger, I went through a lot of things, and during my time in Lularoe, I had a lot of similar experiences. So it was almost like the things that weren't happening weren't really a big deal because I was so used to being treated a certain way. I hope that makes sense. The thing that really pushed me to share my story and my experience was actually seeing other people do the same thing, and the documentary, seeing that I wasn't alone in my feelings, that I wasn't the only person that this happened to and that had a bad experience. I felt kind of connected in a way, and I felt responsible for sharing my story after learning that so many people were financially devastated by this company. And that's not okay to me. You know, I know that everyone makes their own decisions, and some people made financial decisions that probably weren't the best. But, you know, who am I to judge? But when you have a company telling you to buy more because maybe you'll get some great pieces that you can actually sell, and then you continue to buy hoping that you're going to get those amazing unicorn pieces, and you keep getting things that are unsellable, or things that are damaged, or things that people don't want, or things that are just plain weird, you know, because there's some questionable prints out there. But it's really hard to sell when you're not given the tools to do it properly. And you know, you continue to put money into something. It's just really sad. You have hope that it's going to work, and you're trying to create a better future for yourself. And a lot of times I think that people are a bit desperate. I mean, that's why I went into it. I'm not saying everyone is, but for me, I was desperate to make it in the fashion industry. I shared that whole story, so I'm not going to go into that, but I think that there's a lot of reasons that people join, but they don't join to lose everything they have. They don't join to lose their money and their homes and their cars and their spouses and their families and their life. Like they don't join for that. They join to make a positive change in their life, and seeing how much this negatively impacted so many people, I felt compelled to share my story, even though it is not even remotely on the same scale as some of the other people that have shared. And, you know, that's another point, is that we all had different experiences. You know, some of us had very similar experiences, but I know that there were some people that had positive experiences. And so I just want to say that I don't think negatively about everyone that has joined Lularoe and that has continued to do it. We all have our reasons for doing what we're doing, and if it's been a positive experience for you, then that's okay, and I totally respect that. And at the same time, I ask for the same respect for having a differing opinion. Okay, so let's talk about the unicorn in the room. See what I did there? So the elephant in the room, retagging. I can't believe I'm sharing this, and I can't believe I forgot this in my first video. I put this in the comment in the first video, and so many of you were appalled for good reason. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, here it is. Here's the tea. I don't know if this was company-wide or if this was a local thing. So please do not think that every consultant did this, because that's probably not true. But in my area locally, we would have these meetings, and I think it was the first meeting actually, someone was asking about how to cut costs, basically. And if you are unfamiliar, Lularoe started out doing in-home pop-ups, and so early on when I did it, that's what we did. This was way before Facebook Lives and everything else. The in-home pop-ups, you would basically have to pack all your inventory, lug it to wherever you're going, unpack it, and then pack it again, put it in your car, bring it back home, and it was such a hassle. And since we were basically forced to only wear Lularoe, which I mean, makes sense because you're selling it, so of course you want to wear it to the pop-up. It gets pricey, especially with their prices. Even wholesale items are just, they were pricey. So someone was asking about, you know, what do we do? Do we have to wear like the same 2 dresses or something to all these pop-ups? And a very high up individual recommended that we buy a retag gun for this purpose. So basically, you wear an item or items because, you know, Lularoe likes to layer everything. You take the tags off, you wear it to your pop-up, come home, and then put the tags on it and sell it for full price. So like I said, in-home pop-ups are very physical, and where I live, it gets really, really hot. So can you imagine someone wearing an item, let's say a dress, and they're sweating in it and, you know, doing who knows what afterwards? Maybe they have to run errands, or maybe they're going out to dinner, or this or that. I'm not accusing anyone, but for a dress to be worn for hours at a time, or even all day, and then to be retagged and sold full price for a profit to an unsuspecting customer is really gross. It is disgusting. It's unsanitary. It's immoral, and it's just really gross. For the record, I did not do this because I'm not going to do that. I did not agree with that, and I ended up buying my stuff in buy-sell trade groups or getting them from my shipments, and I'll talk about buy-sell trade in a minute, but yeah, the retagging is just absolutely, it's disgusting. And let me just say that what I'm talking about is not the same thing as trying on something at the store for like a minute or, you know, something like that. And again, I just want to reiterate that I really don't know how widespread this was. I'm not saying that every single consultant did this. I did not do this. Many people probably did not even know about this practice, if I'm being honest, but it was a thing, and I do know for a fact that some people did this. So I'll just leave you with that. Okay, let's talk about buy-sell trade groups. Consultants were not allowed to be in them. I was. But only to buy items for myself that I wanted, like a, you know, a floral print dress that I didn't receive in my shipment, but someone else received, and I paid full price for those items. It's not like I got them at wholesale, and I definitely was not selling anything in there. Now, you're probably wondering why we weren't allowed to be in buy-sell trade groups, and I don't have a good answer for you because I don't know, but I have suspicion that it's because consultants were selling in there. I also saw on eBay, and I touched on this one a little bit in the last video, but on eBay I saw that there were unicorn prints going for a lot. For example, like a pair of leggings was over $100 for a certain print, and it was just crazy. And I did notice that there was some stuff like this in the buy-sell trade group, and I don't know if it was consultants selling it. I have no idea. And then eBay, I don't know if someone was just buying them and then selling them for a profit, or if it was a consultant. I also noticed this on Poshmark and pretty much all the selling platforms, but I don't know, so I'm not going to blame anyone. And yeah. I also forgot to mention the constant giveaways in my first video. We were constantly told to give away our inventory to bless people, and I think in theory it's a good thing, you know. You always want to pay it forward and give back to others, and I totally believe in that, and I like to practice that. But when you're struggling to pay your bills and the like, and you're being told to give away 20 pairs of leggings or this or that, that's a lot of money out of your pocket. And you're footing the bill. So, you know, it's one thing if they're telling you to do these giveaways and they're offering to pay for the product, but no, it comes out of our pocket. And so that was very expensive. I think I did it a few times and it really didn't get me anywhere, so I stopped doing them. There was one time, I think I gave away like one item from every single category. I did a huge giveaway and it did not pay off. And so after that, I stopped. I also felt like they were always just trying to make money off of us, which makes sense, you know, they're business, so I can't fault them for that. But it seemed like money was the end-all be-all. It is pretty apparent that the consultants are customers of Lularoe and not business partners. And I want to make that very, very clear. And it was just kind of like a light bulb went off and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the customer. And it was just kind of a crazy realization. After that point, I noticed that everything was money oriented. We were constantly told to buy, 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 even if we didn't have money. Take out a credit card, take out another credit card, do this, sell this, blah, blah, blah. Make money so that you can place your order. And you had to place an order every so often. It had to be for a certain amount of items. I believe it was 33, and these items are not cheap. So, you know, that's a very large sum of money that you're giving. And like I said before, the prints were not always so great, so then you would constantly purchase more and more and more, hoping to get the good prints. But luckily, I am pretty frugal with my spending, so I didn't put myself into debt trying to keep up with everyone else and get the latest and greatest designs ever. We would trade sometimes. Consultants would have like swap parties in order to get new items without having to purchase from Lularoe directly. And I know that this was really looked down upon, but we did it anyway because hello, why wouldn't you? It was just like really easy to get new merchandise for nothing. And I mentioned in the previous video that they tried to tell me that my initial order, which was a lot of money, thousands of dollars, was never paid for. And they did this way after the fact, after I had been a consultant for a while. And so it's like, of course I did, because I used your consignment program to do it, and you should have a record. And I mean, why aren't they keeping that organized anyway? And it's just like, you're trying to get me to pay again because why? Yeah, so luckily I keep everything and I was able to provide proof that I did in fact pay them. But had I not had that, I don't know if they would have made me pay again. That would have been a problem. Also, there were quite a few times where I received shipments with missing items or IOUs. Sometimes I got them in a different shipment, but thinking back, a lot of them never arrived. In fact, I went back in my emails and saw that in my initial inventory shipment, there were a few items that were missing, and I did not ever receive those items, but I did pay for them. So yeah, and there were damages and, you know, no one wanted to be responsible for them. We would be able to send them back if we had so many. So we had to have a certain amount before we could send them back to Lularoe. We had to pay for shipping, of course. And there was a time where they basically told us just to use them as rags or donate them or, you know, do whatever, but it's like I paid for this inventory that's damaged. So, you know, now I'm out this money. So yeah, you're out a lot of money for various things. It's one thing or another. Okay, let's talk about my first impression of the owners. So back when I did it in 2015, I went to the convention because that was very much promoted. Do it for your business, you know, whatever. So I went, and since there were so little consultants compared to later years, we were able to go to the warehouse and pick out our own items for our order, and I covered that in the previous video, but we also had the opportunity to meet Deanne and Mark in person. And let me tell you, people were going crazy over these two, especially Deanne. All the girls are just fawning over her and oh my gosh and this and that, and it was like they were celebrities, and that's another thing I'm going to touch on, but it was just the weirdest thing. We went to, maybe it was her office, it was some office, because she was signing checks, and they were bonus checks. So we go in and people are like going in like one by one. We're all standing in line so that we can shake hands and hug and say hi and this and that. Mark was exactly how I pictured him, just kind of like, you know? And then Deanne was really interesting because she came off as really warm, extroverted, excited, and when it got to me, I was a nobody in this company. I was just this small consultant, and I feel like she looked down on me, and when I was meeting her, she stepped aside to sign a bonus check for one of the leaders and just completely like left me alone. So I did not have a very good first impression, and it really put into perspective the types of things that were important in this company, which I feel like is making money for the company, and as a result, you are well known, you're almost like a celebrity, they love you. And if you're not, if you are just trying to get by, if you are breaking even or even not even making an income and no one knows who you are, then you're looked down on. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt really small. And I was a little sad because I expected a little bit more, seeing how warm she was to other people, and then having that experience was a little disheartening, especially after standing in line and putting so much time and effort into this company. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was an off day. I know everyone has their days, and that's fine if it was, but that was my experience and that's how it made me feel. So now let's talk about celebrity culture. Oh my gosh. I mean, I saw this a lot everywhere. I saw it in person whenever we had our meetings with like certain people, you know, the higher up people. Were very much celebrated for their accomplishments, and then also online in the groups or, you know, wherever else. There were just certain people that you just saw a lot of. You saw the same names over and over and over for one thing or another. Congratulations or this or that, and you get to know who's who in the business, so to speak. But when I went to convention, it was on a whole other level. And my convention experience, oh my gosh, so many things happened. So I talked a lot about it already, but yeah, there's just so much to share. It was crazy. So this behavior was really prevalent at the convention, and it was so weird to me. You saw it everywhere, at the events and in the classes and at the speaking engagements, and even just out in the open in the hallways or here or there, you couldn't get away from it. There were so many people fawning over, praising certain people in the company. There was a lot of focus and attention put on the family members and the really high up consultants. I'm talking people taking pictures with them, groups surrounding them, and this behavior seemed to be rewarded. It seemed to be sought after. It seemed to be what everyone wanted. People wanted to be these people. They saw certain people succeeding and wanted to be like that too. And so it very much created this culture filled with celebrity, and it felt like in order to be recognized, in order to be successful, in order to be financially lucrative in the business, you had to be like that. You had to play the game, so to speak. And I saw this, and to be honest, it was one of those things that I didn't want to have any part in it, because that type of thing does not make you feel good about yourself. It gives you low self-esteem and lack of confidence. And that's not what I wanted for myself. And it's really interesting because they tried to promote that this was a sisterhood. This was a positive thing, and these are your family members. These are your sisters. And we're all in this together. But it very much felt isolating and lonely, and it was really hard to get help from anyone. And I understand people are busy and, you know, whatever, but they promoted it as one thing when in reality it was a completely different thing. And that brings me to my next point, and that is the mean girls. This was very much a thing, and I know there's mean girls everywhere, so I'm not saying that this is specific to Lularoe, because it's not. It's not. There's mean girls everywhere. But like I said, they tried to promote it a certain way, and it was anything but that. It was a very toxic environment. This is one of the things that I'm probably the most sad about, is because one of the reasons I did join was to make friends and find like-minded people that loved fashion and, you know, were kind of in line with what I wanted to do and what I liked, and, you know, similar interests and things like that. I really thought that I was gonna find my tribe in Lularoe, and I didn't. And that's okay. There's other fish in the sea. But there were so many times where I felt left out and like I wasn't good enough, and like I had to fit a certain mold in order to fit in. There is one experience that stands out a lot in my mind, and that is when I was at the convention and we went to some sort of, it was some kind of like amusement park or something like that. It wasn't like a big amusement park, but there was like things to do. And I went to the convention by myself, but there were a lot of local people, so it's not like I was completely by myself. However, I have never felt more alone than I have in this situation. We went, and I remember standing in line, and I was feeling so much anxiety because I get really shy around people, especially back then. I'm a little bit better now, but back then I was very shy. I never wanted to put anyone out. I never wanted anyone to feel like I had to tag along and, you know, ruin their good time or anything like that. And it's completely in my head. I understand that, but it's a very real thing that people experience. And so I remember standing in line, all the local girls were around me and they were talking, and I was by myself. You know, I was surrounded by them, but I was by myself. And I asked them if I could join their group, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. And then just kind of kept talking to whoever. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm not gonna be by myself. So we go in, and everyone splits up. And so some people go over here, some people go over there. And so I went up to one of the girls, and she was a very high up person. and I asked if I could tag along with their group because I didn't know anyone and I didn't want to be by myself. She flat out ignored me and they went on their merry little way and left me by myself. And so I rode this ride by myself, and I remember standing in line and then getting on the ride, and it was getting ready to go, and I looked out over everyone and everyone was paired up or they had their group, they were all talking, and I was by myself, and I had never felt more alone in my life. It was really sad because I did join for friends. That was a big part of it, and I felt like I didn't even have that. And I know that it is no one's responsibility to make me feel comfortable or, you know, anything like that. Like, I completely understand. But I'm the type of person that when I see someone by themselves, I go over and I talk to them because I know how it feels. I try to make them feel comfortable. Just knowing that I'm that kind of person and then seeing how other people treated me, it was so weird and it did hurt a lot. You know, now I have a completely different mindset. I don't feel as much anxiety anymore, like approaching people or getting to know people, and I don't have any problems being by myself. I don't mind if I need to do something by myself. I'm a very independent person, and I've learned that I can only trust myself. And so looking back, I feel like in that situation, I did learn a lesson. I did learn a lot about myself, and I learned how to be strong for myself and how to do things for me and not depend on other people for happiness or friendship or anything like that. I can get those from myself. Anything outside of that is just a positive addition to my life. And lastly, I want to touch on toxic behavior. I feel like a lot of people are talking about the things that happened while they were in Lularoe and, you know, very concrete things. But I think a lot of people miss the mental health aspect of it. And I have touched on it a little bit with the celebrity culture and the mean girl behavior, but the environment as a whole was very toxic, and I think that's really important to talk about. So as I mentioned in my first video, there was an instance where I was basically told I could only wear Lularoe on my blog after I had just started my blog, and you know, thankfully I didn't do that, but there was very much a pressure to only wear Lularoe at all times. When you run your errands, when you go out to dinner, when you pick up your kids from school, when you're doing everything. They very much emphasized the importance of wearing Lularoe. And it wasn't just one piece. They wanted you to layer all different things, and that's a whole different thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me touch on this really quick. The upselling. You may have noticed that your Lularoe consultant would style multiple pieces together. 2, 3, 4, and of course they all had different patterns because Lularoe was all about the patterns, and there was hardly any solids at all because nobody wants solids. So that was a form of upselling, and I remember that if there was something that was less desirable, people would style it with something that was like a unicorn in order to sell the less desirable thing, and so they wouldn't sell the unicorn, the piece that you actually wanted, unless you bought the whole outfit, which could consist of 2 or 3 pieces. And so instead of paying $30 for a t-shirt that you wanted, you're paying $100 for a full outfit just to get that one item that you really, really wanted. Since we were told to sell, 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 we were told to style them in strange ways. And so, I mean, some of my previous outfits are a little interesting, but I did the best I could. So if you're wondering why there were so many interesting prints paired together, that's why. Okay, so now back to the toxic behavior. Like I said, I was told I could only wear Lularoe on my blog, and that did not fly with me. And so we were basically told what to wear. And when I was at the convention, I remember seeing clones of myself walking around. We all looked the same. We were all dressed in some crazy, colorful print. in some form of dress or top and skirt combo or even leggings. It was really weird. It was like we all had the same style. We all had to look the same, think the same, be the same. And I'm very much an individual type of person. I like being unique, and I don't like to be like everyone else. And so that really bothered me. I would style my items with things I already had in my closet from other brands, because why would you just wear Lularoe 24/7? But we were told to do that. We were not allowed to be negative if you receive a damaged item, or if you paid for something and you don't receive it. Or, you know, a higher up tells you one thing, but then someone tells you something else and you're confused, or something else happens. Because there was like always something going on. This or that, just constant changes, and yeah, it was just unreal sometimes. But you weren't allowed to be negative about it. And by negative, I mean you weren't allowed to question anything. You weren't allowed to have an opinion on anything. You weren't allowed to say anything less than stellar about anything. And so for this reason, it was really hard to get anyone to help if you did have an issue with something. And it was a rule to not post that kind of stuff in the groups. You absolutely could not post anything like that. It had to be hearts and rainbows and unicorns and stars and happiness and joy. It couldn't be anything else. Looking back, and I hate to say this, but it almost seems like we were being conditioned to be a certain way, to think a certain way, whether it's intentional or not. And that is just my observation. This does not mean anything was going on of that sort, but with the things that I experienced, and now looking back on it from a different perspective and seeing it from the outside rather than being inside it and not being able to see the signs, it looks like that. I haven't talked much about this. I did share a little bit on my blog a few years ago, but I grew up in a very narcissistic environment. Because of this, I had certain thinking patterns, and now that I am out of both of those situations, I see a lot of similarities. I'm not saying anything. I'm not making accusations or trying to spread rumors or making false claims or anything like that. I'm just sharing my insight because I did see a lot of similarities, and since I have healed myself from that part of my life, I see certain behaviors that I had that are very similar to what I see others experiencing, and I see a lot of similar situations, and that's all I'm gonna say. If you have ever been in similar circumstances, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think I'm gonna end the video here because honestly there's so much I could say. I could talk forever, and I feel like I already have. And I just want to add again that this is my experience, my perspective, and my thoughts. And I do hope that this in some way helps someone out there. I know that it's helped me by sharing my story. It makes me feel a little bit better about what I experienced, and it's actually a very healing thing. So thank you for allowing me to share, and thank you for watching. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and feel free to share, leave a comment. And if you love pink girly things, make sure you check out my Instagram at Lizzie in Lace and my blog lizzieandlace.com. I will see you next time.